Hi everyone, Niklas Heidloff here. 2 years ago we had the idea to build an extension for Domino Designer so that Domino developers could import reusable controls from OpenNTF into custom applications built with Domino Designer. At that time we built a first version of such a tool and deployed it to OpenNTF. However, at that time there were a couple of problems. The first one was that we simply didn't have a big enough set of controls that people might want to import. And then there were also some technical issues with the tool because it didn't allow the import of all design elements and files in an NSF, and there were also some user experience issues. Fortunately, these things have changed now. So let's take a look at the Apache catalog. This is the list of controls that we have right now in the Apache catalog, and as you can see it's a longer list, and there's also higher quality controls in there. The other thing that has changed is that we extended this tool and built a new version now that doesn't have these technical restrictions anymore, and that also has much better user experience. And when I say we, I really mean my two colleagues Yi Gao and Yang Chun Cheng, because they implemented the new version as well as the original version. In this video I want to do two things. In the first part I'm going to demonstrate how consumers can use this import tool to import controls into their own applications. And in the second part I'm going to demonstrate what you need to do as a control developer to build and package your control so that it shows up in this new tool. Now, just before I go started with the first demonstration, let me give you a definition of a reusable control. A reusable control can be a custom XPages control, but it also can be more. In general, it's a set of design elements or files from one NSF. So it can be a custom control, it can also be multiple controls, it can be a script library in different languages, or it can even be just files or folders that you imported into the NSF or that you created using the Eclipse IDE in your NSF. So let me show you now how easy it is to import a control. So here is Designer, and I close this one and create a brand new application. I call it test2 and say OK. I add it to my working set here, and since I want to run the control after I will have imported it, I need to add anonymous here to my access control list. So now you have two ways to invoke the import functionality. The first one is here using this new icon in the toolbar, and the second one is my personal preference, which is a new menu entry right here when you right click on your database or application, and I can say now OpenNTF import reusable control from OpenNTF. So now I get this dialog here and I can choose between these two catalogs, Apache licensed controls as well as GPL licensed controls, and then I can navigate to these different controls and read the metadata, the description, developers, and so forth. And in this example, I'm gonna choose this one here, the XPage business card controls. So now I could simply say finish if I leave the defaults, but I can also change them. I can choose here the Domino application in which I want to import the control or controls. In this case, this is my database that I just created. And then there are some more options. So I leave the first one unchecked here. This one says override any existing files and design elements without warning, which you probably leave unchecked in most cases. The second one is more important. It says remove temporary files after import. Now, what you need to understand is what happens in the backend. Because there's a process or a series of steps being performed. In the first step, the actual zip file is downloaded from OpenNTF. Then the zip file is copied into a local temporary file directory, and it's extracted. And then also the NSF is extracted into basically an Eclipse project that can be imported. And the reason why you don't want these files to be removed every time after you have done an import is because there is more data or files in the zip file than the design elements that you import. Specifically, many of these design elements have their documentation in the zip file as a PDF or something, or screenshots. And also these zip files always contain license information, which in most cases is not imported into these into the NSFs because it's not part of the design elements, but because they are separate files in the zip file. So that's why I leave it unchecked. And the third option here is create log file, which will trigger the creation of a file that has a list of the files or design elements that have been imported and the ones that have been ignored. So now I say finish, and I get this dialog here, start importing, and it tells me that the process is happening in the backend. So now I see here in the progress indicator that something is going on, and now it's done, import completed, and it was successful. Now I could simply say OK, or I open the temporary directory right from here, which is this one. It's stored here in your user directory under temp, and then a subdirectory OpenNTF. And here are all the different files and directories that have been created. This is the file, the original file that was downloaded from OpenNTF. This one is the extracted version of it, and as I said, in this case, there's the documentation in it, screenshots, as well as license information. And there is one more which contains basically the project, the Eclipse project of that NSF. And last but not least, there's the log file that I can open here. And it tells me that 4 files have been imported, which are 2 custom controls. This one here, inline business card, and the second one, pop-up business card, and then each one has the another configuration file. So now after I've done that, I can go into Designer, and I actually see these 2 custom controls showing up here. Now in order to show you that the import actually worked, I can create a new X page, I call it test. And then at the bottom here, I see my 2 new controls, and I copy in here the first one, the inline business card. And now I need to set a couple of custom properties to make it work. So the first one is the connection server, then my email address, and I need to define the person display name, and then I can launch it, and it brings up the inline business card right here. Before I'm going to talk about how XPages developers can add their own controls to the list of controls that shows up in this new extension, I forgot to mention one thing, which is how consumers of the import tool can actually install the tool. Now, the way it works is you can open this entry, import and export for Domino Designer in the Apache catalog. And right here there's an icon that you can drag and drop onto the My Widgets sidebar panel in the Notes client. And I won't do it now because I've already done it, but if you do it the first time, this drop action will trigger the installation of that plugin. The Notes client will download the plugin from the Eclipse update site on OpenNTF, install it, and after a restart you'll be able to use that functionality from your Designer client. In the second part of this video, I'm going to describe what XPages developers need to do in order to add their own reusable controls to the import tool. Now, as you saw earlier, the import tool reads the entries from the OpenNTF catalogs, and there is an OpenNTF contribution process for all the releases that show up in these catalogs. For example, contributors need to be approved OpenNTF contributors, which means that they need to sign contributor license agreements. Also, the releases in the catalogs have been scanned by the OpenNTF IP manager, and OpenNTF committers need to review, at least briefly, these releases technically. So this is the same contribution process for all releases in the catalogs. For reusable controls to show up in the import tool, there is some more work involved to make that happen. This is here the catalog as I showed earlier, and there's a whole set of controls in here, and the import tool only displays a subset of them. One reason is because this tool is rather new, we want to make sure that it actually works, and we want to test these controls at least once briefly. The other reason is a technical reason, and something we ask OpenNTF contributors to deliver, which is a list of design elements that is necessary to be imported. For example, when you provide a reusable control or a custom control in the easiest case in an NSF, you only want to import that custom control and not all other design elements, for example, not the application properties. So that's why we also provide an export extension to Domino Designer, so that you can also mark the design elements and files that are actually needed for the custom control. So let me show you how this looks like. This is Designer again, and I have a sample database here, business card. It has 2 X pages, which are really just the unit tests, and then I have 2 custom controls, which is really the only thing that I want to export here. Now what I can do is I can say right click OpenNTF and then say export reusable control for OpenNTF, which brings up this dialog here. And now by default the currently selected database is selected here as well, but I can deselect that and only really choose here either all custom controls or just a subset. And as you know, a custom control has always 2 files, the actual XSP file and then a config file. Then I can choose the directory and I give it a name. Let's say business card.zip. And there's some more things I can define here. First of all, every release or every project, every zip file needs to have a notice file, which looks like this by default. So this is sort of like a template, and I can define my project name here and my copyright and so forth, and then I can save it. And then I need to choose one of the 4 accepted licenses on OpenNTF, and this export dialog also directly copies the text of that license into the generated zip file. Plus I can add more files into the zip file. For example, if you use other third-party code, you might want to or might have to also append other license texts, or for example, you can add your own documentation. So after I've done all of that, I can say finish, and yes, I want to save this one, and then I say OK. And now when I go to this directory, you can see that this zip file has been created, and I can extract it. And this is how it looks like. It has the actual NSF, which is a copy of your NSF. This is the file that I added manually. This is the Apache license file that was added automatically. This is the notice file that I just changed and then added my own project name. And this is a configuration file that now describes the actual design elements that are needed when you do an import. And this is how it looks like. It essentially only says import only the folder custom controls with my 4 files in there. And that same functionality would work for all other folders, and you can also scope it down to single files. So that's essentially all that needs to be done. It's very simple and straightforward. And again, we ask people that have contributed X pages or reusable controls in the past to use this export tool so that this import list file is generated, and then we can add these entries not only to the Apache to the Apache and GPL catalogs, but can also mark them as ready for the import tool.